Good morning, everyone. Hey, Alejandro, Alex, Patrick. Hey, Jimmy. All right. So markets are neutral, I guess, down a little bit this morning. Yesterday was a little bit of a correction day. And so starting with the Russell here, one of the things that, we talked about, I think a little last week, and I'm not sure I mentioned this week. I think it was last week anyway. But during a correction, to look at the closes, because sometimes we get these red bars. And, if you look at it in this way, you could you get a better look at it. Is this anything of significance here? Now, we do have a bottoming tail bar on the Russell, and today it's down a little bit. It's actually trading inside of that range. And I have to change this color. It's within today's range. Looks like 172.12-ish. Why is that like that? Anyway, wherever, it's right around here. Not a big deal. So from a daily chart perspective, it's like, okay, what is it going to do today? We have to wait several hours to actually see. But at this point, yesterday's low is support. Right, that's our first support, and the high, can it get above that high? So as we sit here right now, there's nothing to do with IWM or anything that looks like this. And that's a takeaway, as to what would I do in a situation like this with this particular chart setup. So we're talking about what's happening here today, but using this for whatever you're going to trade today, tomorrow, next year, situation like this, there's nothing to do. And whether it's a daily chart or if this was an hourly chart, and look at and interpret this in exactly the same way, where I need to either see it take out the high or the low to get any, bias as to direction. And even if it took out the low, unless there's something significant happening to the downside, the assumption is that as long as it doesn't come maybe down here, and of course down here, and ideally stops around here on any pullback, the assumption is that it eventually is going to move higher because it's in an uptrend. Right? It's not like we know it. It's just that is the proper thought that we should have as to prices being in an uptrend, and that it's going to continue until it fails. Good question, Brian. Do I look at the intraday? If I wanted to trade it. So, some years ago, alls I traded any given day, alls I would trade was one or both of them, which would be YM and the NQ. I first started with ES, but then these became available, and then this is all I traded. So to make money, yes, I had to trade it intraday, but from the perspective of, trading different stocks, no, I'm not going to trade this because I can find better opportunities in other stocks or ETF that I don't have to trade within a prior day's range. So I did do that years ago because it was the only instrument that I was focused on. And then, I would go down to, a 5-minute chart, and I could trade this and bounced up like this in a consolidation trade, this kind of move. And, I would look at an hourly chart and a 5-minute chart. And going back many years ago when volatility was high, the YM, a 1-minute chart, the bar range could be and was 100 points. So it was a fantastic time to trade those instruments because of the extreme ranges that they had intraday, even on a 1-minute chart. So I can pick better things today to trade than trading this. If I was going to trade this intraday, I could do it. Yeah. You have a bear call spread on this stock that's gapping up here today. Well, this is a tough one. Clear this. So this thing has moved up an extreme amount, obviously. And so just looking at it objectively, as if I'm not in any position here, what would I do with it? Well, I certainly wouldn't buy it, but I wouldn't have bought it yesterday either, unless I approached it just as a day trade. So you look for clues if you think it's going to go down for a trend change. And I've still got the 5-minute chart up here, and it's still in an uptrend. So just because it kind of attempted to go higher here and couldn't, that doesn't mean the trend is ended. It's not. So, so when we look at what we perceive to be an extreme move, and I would say this is extreme, right? Going up to $86 here. And let's say we decide, hey, we're going to short this today because we think it's gone too much in too short a period of time. Well, I'm not going to do it until at least this 5-minute time frame begins to fail, where it violates the trend. So if it was to move up and then break down like this, the 5-minute trend would turn down, or it wouldn't be in an uptrend anymore. And then I could look for breakout bar failures, some type of, bearish pattern to short it. And that doesn't mean this is going to collapse, and get smashed. But at some point, people are going to say this is ridiculous, and they're going to start selling it to take profits, and somebody's going to want to short it, you have to see. But as far as a bear call spread on this, I don't know when this was done in Thomas. If it was here, and just assuming that they're on this break, I don't remember this. I don't know if this was one of yours, but at this point, well, I guess your maximum loss, what it is since you've got a spread. So when does it expire? And then, does it begin to turn? And, you manage it. I don't know. That's, I would just have to see what it does. And, Dan would answer that better than I could as far as, what to do with it in the moment. Yeah. Okay. Now, where are we at here today with these futures? Let's change this back to 60-minute chart. So 60-minute has rolled over, and the daily time frame has got that bull flag type of look. Yesterday, late in the day, we talked about waiting for the 60-minute chart to eventually bottom out before considering a long. We talked about bottoming tail bars. Yes, and Thomas didn't have it to everybody. It said just the panelists. And the question was suggestion on what to do when overnight gaps way above a stop. And that was the stock, TLRY. Yeah. Yeah, I think Dan mentioned it, but that never was an official. It was kind of like, hey, this thing's up a lot, because it wasn't posted. So what we're looking for here, assuming this doesn't turn into a bottoming tail bar, let's kind of, before it gets too late, a little bit on our discussion yesterday with multiple time frames. This is pulling back. And one of the things I mentioned was, is it at the 20? Is it at minor support? Whereas if you were to get a bottoming tail bar, right, that pulled back to here, and you can see this angle of retracement here, that would mean that the hourly time frame is still sloped this way. But the ideal situations is when you get 2 days. I know this is getting messy here, but if you get 2 days of stabilization before trading above a prior bar's high to trigger a long, is that the hourly begins to base out, and that basing, moving away from these reference points, increases the odds that you're going to be able to get through it with relative ease, in addition, because it's in an uptrend. So right now, same as the Russell, still correcting. Maybe it's got to come down here. That's where I know the buyers would like to pick it up. But do buyers begin to step up for whatever reason intraday and form a bottom where there is no significant support? And you can see there's a little bit right here, but that is insignificant compared to this topping pattern that we see on the 60-minute chart. Okay. And Q's similar. So we have a trend break on the 60-minute. We do not have a trend break on the daily. So far, it's just correcting a bit. What do? We stay away until we have a pattern to suggest it's going to continue higher. I'm not interested in shorting this because it's in an uptrend. And while it's a little far from support, it's not far enough away that I would even consider shorting this. And I don't think at this point, because there isn't any kind of a real failure pattern up here where it attempted to go higher and come back in again, to even consider a bear call spread, that doesn't make sense to me yet. Same situation. Dow actually a little bit more of a bottoming tail bar yesterday and closer to support, which actually means it was a little weaker than the Qs. And if you following what I'm saying here, because this is closer to support, it was actually weaker because it didn't rally as much. Right? See? Further from support, so it had a stronger rally than the Dow did at the time. And now it's pulling in, it's down here. We'll see if this holds. Same story as far as the broader markets go. We're not ready to consider a long trade in the direction of the uptrend. Bonds moved lower, and we talked pre-market yesterday, but bonds moving lower, financials should move up, and they did. And they're down a little bit here today, trading inside of yesterday's range. So more neutral price action telling us sit on your hands and wait. Oil finding a little bit of buying here in the mornings and a little pop up there, but it had a bad day yesterday. It ran a little bit too far, and sellers came in. I guess that were buying here, took profits. Notice the gap reversal day here. Pretty powerful bar, gapping down a giant green bar there. And then it just kind of was a grinder up into resistance. And then I was like, whoa, there's the continuation into the void. And traders said, I don't want to do that. And so a little profit taking, but look at the depth of retracement in here, which means it's got to be a bottoming tail bar or a red bar ignored on the weekly time frame. There you go. Red bar ignored, reversal right back up again. And now as it's coming up into some resistance, it's just chopping around. But, looking at the weekly time frame, while this depth of retracement was a little bearish. It didn't trade under that major support, and now it's coming back and it's just stalled at resistance. Right? So normal price action. And we're kind of waiting on these energy stocks, which came back from this breakdown that failed, to continue their consolidation there. And they should eventually be able to break to the upside based on the strength in oil and this breakdown failure. There is a lot of resistance here, so it's dealing with it. So we're monitoring this and waiting. Gold, trend down, had a bounce there. No interest for me. Excuse me. In gold, just just into market analysis. Nothing suggests at this time to be interested in gold or gold stocks. There's better things out there than to be messing around here. And look at the gold miners. I mean, it's just, even though gold bounced a bit, they're just continuing down. They're in a bear market. Right? So kind of wild action there, pre-market. 49 and back down again. Anyway. All right, it's a little late. I just talk a little longer, so I'll let Dan review positions and take it from there.
Good morning, everyone. HDS, yeah, I got that on my list. A quick look at our opens here. Target, covered call, that looks great. Leicester over the high. And so with the market down, if it triggers, that's going to be even better of strength. And I actually did a put spread into the close, but looking to add directional also when the mothership tells me it's okay. Red hat put spread looks good. UAL covered call looks good. TMUS still a valid trade, has not triggered yet. JWN we're long stock. We did not get filled on the put spread. HCA, I canceled the entry because it gapped over it, but I'll still keep an eye on it. CMCSA, we're long stock with a big stop under that wide range bar. Garmin, covered call, that looks great. Sienna, covered call. I'm showing one print up there at 32.90. And if that's real, then, it's extended. That's why we started with a big old stop, but the monthly breakout is phenomenal. And so therefore, I'm going to be looking to short out of the money calls to leg into a covered call. FDM, we still have a half lot of the put spread. TGODF, I don't see any pre-market prints, and maybe that's because it's OTC. I don't know. That is kind of more the wild, wild west over there. But hopefully this should, with all logic, this should be gapping up with the strength of the others.